So say you're 60 years old and you're just starting to think of retirement, and you're trying to figure out what and when you can retire and you have no retirement savings. I think this video is going to help you out a lot. I'm a professor of business, and I think about this a lot in terms of what would you actually do in terms of this choice that you have to save in a short amount of time. And what you're going to see is a lot of videos online or a lot of advice to do risky things. And I'm going to advise you never to do those particular risky things and to look at what you're doing and simply make a plan for the future. And there's good advice in terms of thinking about yourself as a business, a corporation, and think about what would a corporation do in this particular circumstance. And if you're managing you're probably $1 million portfolio, essentially. That's how much people are worth, if not more, if you start looking at it. People are really valuable. You could do a lot of valuable things. And so imagine yourself as a tiny little company and you are running this. What would you do if you were the CEO of a tiny little company and you had X amounts of time to save? Well, you're probably going to have to stretch out your time horizon just a little bit and maybe make it 10, 20 years by the time that you so-called retire, and do planning accordingly, right? So you take stock of all of your assets that you actually have, look at your liabilities. So what are those particular things? So your assets is everything that you actually own, and you look at all the things that you own. You probably own a lot of stuff at this point. And then you look at your liabilities. What are those things? All the things that you owe. And you just do what's called a back of a napkin calculation. Something really simple. You tally those things up if you can do that, or guesstimate, and look to see at how much money that you actually have left. Right? That's all you have to really do. And once you do that, I know that this is all simplified, but that's what I'm trying to sort of get you to think about is, don't get stressed out about this stuff. Think about it in very simplistic terms. I think we overthink these things, and that's a problem of when you go into a financial planner kind of person. They're going to overthink all of this stuff, make it seem really stressful and not very fun. If you find a good financial planner, they're not going to make it feel stressful. And then from there, you work towards this particular short-term goal. Now, your goal is to make a quick estimate to how much money that you actually need to live off of. And it doesn't have to be anything that's overly complicated. And then plan based on what it means to get there. And so you might look at, I might have to work a little bit of extra time, or I might have to sell a few things. Now, the challenge that we all face is that we're going to face a lot of stigma, and we're going to face a lot of shoulds and coulds, and all of those emotions are going to come up, and you're going to say I should have done that, or should have done this. And that's the stuff you have to push away, and that's the stuff you really have to work hard at, and think of it as just a simply financial decision. And I'm going to tell you this right now, nobody else cares about what is going on in your house, not as much as you think that they actually care. And so you have to, if you sell things or downgrade or any of those particular things, nobody cares. Right? It's going to feel like everybody cares when you go through that, and it's going to hurt, but nobody cares. And that's the other thing that you have to think about, is that you have to do this as a partner, right? If you have, or with other people, right? If you have other people in your family, it should be a choice with your family, right? It should be you and your partner, maybe your spouse at this point, sitting down and actually doing this. So it's very sort of a simplistic, rational way of doing things, but don't overthink it. That's the important thing, is to remember not to overthink it. Now, there's one thing that you can't do that is going to be very, very valuable that other people actually have access to if they start early, and that's compound interest. Now, it's going to be much harder to take advantage of compound interest. It's a miracle. What am I actually talking about? It's simply put, it's just interest on interest. And I know that seems really complicated, but over the time period of saving some money and you put it into good investments, it can be a lot of money. Now, it does not mean that you can't save a ton of money over the course of the next 20 years and take advantage of that. It's just that your time horizon, when you start with year 60, you got to start thinking, hey, I'm going to be 80 years old when this all goes down, and I can actually do that. Now, I want to take a step back, right? Instead of thinking about interest, which is what a lot of investment people would tell you to do, but you don't have as much time. Instead, what you got to think about is really working on your well-being and how you understand the world. Why? The key thing here is a lot of these choices have to do with psychological things that you're going to have to deal with. It's going to be very, very challenging to deal with all of this stuff. But also, you have to redefine your life such that it feels good for you, right? It might mean, if you don't have retirement savings, it might mean that you're going to have to work, but you have to find the right work for you. You might have to find the things that you enjoy. You might have to find, and it might take some work and sort of head scratching, and it might be a little more challenging than you think, but you can do that. But also you have to sort of think about what is the thing that you can drive, all of those things, all of the assets that you have to get you from here to there. And to do this, you have to really take some deep dives in terms of thinking about yourself. And that is a ton of self-work. That's less on the financial side and less thinking about what you are all about. And that's the interesting thing, is as long as you treat all of this as kind of an intellectual problem, in the sense of not the way that you're thinking about it, is taking a step back and saying, I could do this. I just simply have to think about this in a very simplistic way, as if I'm managing these assets that I have access to, and I'm going to do that in the way that I'm going to do this, just work on myself. And by doing that, you'll come to terms with a lot of hard things that you may have to come to terms with. And man, it could work out really well for you. And if you have all of this in mind and thinking about this in very, A, simplistic stuff, as simple as possible, and then B, thinking about how you can work on yourself, you'll probably do really well. And you'll get through this. That's all I have to say. All right, take care.